in the question box in your control panel, and I will bring them up during the presentation. We will also have at the end 15 minutes for questions. If you have any issues or you can't hear me clearly, you can just send out in the chat box. So thank you all for joining us today, webinar about the corporate governance regulatory updates in the region. My name is Samia. I am a consultant with Hawkama. We also have Dr. Ashraf Jamaluddin, who is the CEO of Hawkama Institute. So Hawkama is a corporate governance institute. As you know, it's owned by DIFC. It was founded in 2006. We work to improve the corporate governance practices of governments and companies across the Middle East and North Africa. We also help organizations to develop globally recognized corporate governance framework, policies, procedures, and attract qualified directors. So in today's webinar, we will be having governance experts from different countries in the GCC, starting from the UAE. We are really delighted to have Her Excellency Dr. Mariam Al Suwaidi. She's acting CEO at ESCA UAE. We will also be having from ESCA Mr. Mohammed Junaid Isa. He's the head of corporate governance section in ESCA. We have from Central Bank of Bahrain, Madame Alia Umran. She's the CFA head research and investor protection. And we have from Kuwait, Madame Ibtihal Al-Shamali. She's the Director of Corporate Governance Department and CMA. And we have also Mr. Hamid Sultan Al-Busaidi. He's Executive Director at Oman OCGS, which is the Oman Center for Governance and Sustainability. Now we'll turn the time over to Her Excellency Dr. Mariam Al-Suwaidi to give the keynote opening.
Thank you, Samia. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to you. I would like to begin by expressing my appreciation and a pleasure for being part at this special event and extend my thanks and appreciation to Hawkama Institute for Corporate Governance for their initiative to highlight the importance of corporate governance and its role in underpinning the foundations of economic growth and creating a favorable environment for investment. I also wish to extend my sincere thanks to our distinguished guests, including representatives of the regulators, board of directors, and management of public joint stock companies from the country and the wider GCC for their keenness to enrich this event by their participation. Someone described corporate governance and its objective in very simple and nice terms as good corporate governance is all about being proper and prosper. How well described. The essence of good corporate governance is proper corporate conduct, and the result is prosperity. Prosperity and growth for all stakeholders in the process. The company itself, its owner, minority shareholders, creditors, suppliers, accountants, customers, markets, and investors, and with them, the regulators also prosper by achieving their objectives. But this is easier said than done. Strong corporate governance demands high levels of commitments from the directors, strong oversight, rigorous audit, control over risk, and tactful management of conflicts of interest. Therefore, it is inevitable that implementation of a higher level of corporate governance obligation brings with it more stringent obligations and responsibilities on directors. It also brings an expectation from shareholders and creditors that corporate governance practices will not only remain in the rule book, but will be adhered to by the directors. Meanwhile, the GCC regulatory authorities, financial markets, and public companies have shown good progress in comparison to most global counterparts in the implementation of governance standards over the course of the past 15 years, giving their paramount importance, not only as the first line of defense for public joint stock companies against potential crisis, but also for the development of financial markets as a whole and attracting more foreign investments. The SCA, for its part, took the lead early on by establishing controls for governance of public joint stock companies back in 2007 as a strategic objective. to establish institutional discipline and enhance transparency, and later enhance its regulation in 2009, 2014, and 2015 with the guidance issued by IOSCO and OECD. This was further enhanced last year by the SCA Board Chairman's Decision Number 3 of 2020, which established a clear and orderly, legal and effective corporate governance framework. Internationally, new themes have emerged in the realm of corporate governance. The world is now focused on effects of climate change, which has encouraged the corporate world to take notice and concentrate on ESG, environment, social and governance factors, while evaluating corporate performance. Responsible investing and green investing is the flavor of the times. Corporate may show strong traditional governance principles, but they will fail to attract long-term institutional investor interest if their ESG is not strong enough. Distinguished guests, I'm sure that this webinar will generate enriching discussions and deliberations and create a favorable opportunity to foster a governance culture and share relevant expertise and experiences, especially with the participation from such elite group of speakers in governance and board affairs. I wish to conclude by thanking you all for your attention and hope that the webinar will result in new and fresh perspective toward further enhancing our governance standards and practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. Dr. Ashraf?
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Dr. Mariam, for your inspiring words to start with. And I really appreciate what you mentioned, especially that it is really about bringing governance to implementation and not just to having rules and regulations. We are also very delighted that we do have a very good panel of experts. And I think that the best way to start is simply to start by giving each one of them a few minutes just to brief us on the latest regulations in their market so that we understand what is going on. And as Samia mentioned, please, if any audience has any comments or questions, you type it in for us. It comes in the chat panel, and then we read it for the speakers and for the audience. So I wouldn't waste any more time from you. I'd like to give the hand to Mr. Mohammed Junaid to brief us on the latest governance updates in ESCA, as Her Excellency mentioned, that happened last year, but maybe even before that. Mr. Mohammed, please, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good morning. This is Mohammed Junaid, Head of Corporate Governance Section with Securities and Commodities Authority, United Arab Emirates. First of all, I would like to thank the Institute of Corporate Governance, Hawkama, for giving me the opportunity to be one of the speakers in this webinar, which will cover the new updates and changes regarding the corporate governance in the GCC countries. I will cover the most important changes regarding the corporate governance, which has been done in the Federal Law Number 2 of 2015 on the commercial companies and the governance guide issued by the Chairman of Authority Board of Directors. Decision Number 3 Chairman of 2020 concerning approval of the Joint Stock Company Governance Guide. So the most important some of the most important changes which has been done regarding the corporate governance are the announcing of the invitation of the General Assembly, as the invitation must be made before the date of set for the meeting by a period of not less than 21 days, comparing to 15 days previously, in order to give a greater opportunity for the shareholders to organize their time to attend the meeting or to appoint whoever they see fit to attend on their behalf. Also, the shareholder is going to appoint someone, if the shareholder is going to appoint someone to attend the General Assembly meeting on his behalf, should provide a power of attorney issued by the shareholder, which must be approved by either a notary public, commercial chamber of economic department in the state, bank or company license in the state, provided that the agent shall have account with any of them, any other entity licensed to perform attestation work. As for other amendments and updates that were made regarding sending invitation, the company must notify the shareholder on the date and agenda of the General Assembly meeting through registered mail or through modern technological communication means a specific in the company's article of association, like sending SMS and emails. The law also permitted companies to hold General Assembly meetings, the shareholder participation, the meeting, and voting on the decision. Modern technological communication means as well as remote attendance. These amendments have proven their effectiveness, especially during the pandemic period that the world is going through. With regards to empowering the shareholders, especially empowering minority shareholders to exercise their rights, some important amendments has been made, which is that the shareholder who's owning 10% of the company's shares can apply to the company to hold General Assembly meeting, where the previous percentage was 20% of the company's shares. In addition, before the date of the General Assembly meeting and after publishing the invitation, the shareholder representing 5% of the company's capital can apply to include an item or items on the agenda of the Assembly meeting, with a request submitted to ESCA within 5 days from the date of the company's publishing the Assembly invitation. Also, during the meeting of the Assembly and before starting discussing the items of the meeting, the shareholders can include an item or items on the agenda on condition that the added item is not related to discuss a special resolution by the General Assembly or the discharge of all or some of the company's board of directors of the company. Among the additions made to the governance guide is that the company must appoint 2 or more representatives to attend the General Assembly meeting and vote on the decision on behalf of the shareholders as the appointment and fees is approved by the General Assembly. Therefore, the appointment is from either a law firm registered in the role of lawyers working in the country or financial analyst accredited by ESCA. In addition, regarding the board secretary, the board shall appoint a secretary independent of the company's management, who is reporting directly to the board of directors. Moreover, the newest amendment is regarding the women membership in the board of directors, and the representation of women is not less than 1 member in the formation of the board of directors. This amendment is effective by the 1st of April 2021. So I hope that I have covered some of the important changes that has been done regarding corporate governance, and I'll be happy to answer all of your questions through the chat when it has been assigned to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your updates. I think also one of the important things that happened in the new code that you launched last year was, again, allowing for the dual board structure, which something that was not done before in the Arab region, which is allowing having 2 boards, supervisory board, as well as executive or management board. So I think this is something also which is very important. One of the interesting ones, of course, was about gender diversity, as you mentioned, and of course the independence of the company secretary from the management of the company itself. Now we shall see other jurisdictions and see what happened there. And of this, I'd like to invite Ms. Alia Al Omran, and she is the CFA Head of Research and Investor Protection Capital Markets Supervision Unit in Bahrain Central Bank. So Alia, please, can you brief us on latest developments in the governance regulations in Bahrain, whether for banks or listed companies, please? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend today. Thank you, Dr. Ashraf, and the Halcom Institute for Corporate Governance for the invite to participate today with such esteemed panelists. This is not the first time I meet Akh Mohammed or even Ibtisam. So thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Alia Omran. I'm the head of Research and Investor Protection at the Capital Markets Supervision Directorate of the Central Bank of Bahrain. My work mainly revolves around supervising listed companies in the capital market in Bahrain, including but not limited to the supervision and maintenance of the highest level controls of the corporate governance within listed companies. Today, in brief, I'll take you through the measures that we have taken since the early days of COVID pandemic back in 2020. As it was our responsibility as the regulator of the capital market to promptly set standards and tailored measures on listed companies, especially in the area of corporate governance. While doing so, we had to ensure that such measures will not jeopardize the effectiveness of the core standards and ensure the maximum protection of shareholders' rights. So first of all, with the different social distancing measure that took place, we started with implementing and guiding companies to hold their general meetings electronically. This ensured no material disruption to the timeline of general meetings and at the same time effective participation of the shareholders in those meetings. We consider shareholders' participation in general meetings as one of the most important communication tools between shareholders, the board, and the management. Positive outcomes were noticed from adopting the virtual meeting, conducting shareholders' meetings. We've noticed that the virtual meetings facilitated attendance for shareholders, especially shareholders residing outside Bahrain. On top of that, we believe that virtual meetings allowed shareholders to participate openly. And because of such notable outcome of virtual meetings, and even with lower restrictions on social distancing in future, we continue to guide companies to always provide shareholders with a virtual means to attend any upcoming general meetings. It's worth mentioning that we here in Bahrain have recently issued standards to legalize electronic voting, which is currently in the final stages before effective implementation. This, I believe, we owe it to COVID, as it was a main factor in accelerating the issuance of the electronic voting standards. Aside from virtual meetings and electronic voting, and since disclosure is one of the key measures of effective corporate governance in which shareholders have to be kept informed in a timely manner of all material information concerning their investment, we have issued circulars in which we urged companies to continue to immediately disclose any material information during the pandemic, given the heightened uncertainty. And we emphasize the importance to provide an adequate level of transparency and avoid withholding any material information that would attribute to a misinformed market, especially with the implementation of the various relief measures by the CBB, such as the exemption from the publication of the financial statements in relation to Q1 of the year 2020, which we believe could have had a potential effect on the promptness of the disclosure of material information. Also, we emphasize the importance of exercising caution when dealing with material not public information, especially that listed companies have adopted remote working and employees were provided with remote access since the beginning of the pandemic. This is very important in order to safeguard material non-public information against any illegal acts, and particularly in relation to insider trading. Another measure the CBB has put in place, and because of the expectation of potential impact of COVID on the financial results of companies, we required companies to properly disclose the impact of COVID separately in their quarter financial statements, and this is still an ongoing requirement. It's also worth mentioning that such disclosure measures were in line with the statement issued by IOSCO, the International Organization of Securities Commission, on the importance of disclosure about COVID. I have to say that the team at the CBB has been working proactively to carefully monitor all news and updates in the market that are related to the COVID pandemic, and in order to ensure investor protection against any investment fraud attempt or the publication of false news. Also, the team has been maintaining an open line of communication with listed companies and investors to understand the challenges being faced and to be able to provide assistance when necessary. Needless to say, the CBB as a whole is consistently reassessing the economic situation and the various policy measures that are designed and implemented in general to counter the impacts of the pandemic, given that it still remains an ongoing concern across the globe. This concludes the main updates and regulatory measures that were taken by the CBB recently. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alia. One of the comments actually, again, I'd like to make is about gender diversity. I mean, how is gender diversity in the corporate governance system in Bahrain, in boards, I mean?
Sorry, I can't hear you very well, Dr. Ashraf. Couldn't hear your question.
Okay, I'm talking about gender diversity. Is there any regulation or clause about gender diversity on boards?
Currently, we don't have, but we're studying this. And inshallah, you'll have to. I'll send you the updates soon. Inshallah, pray for us.
Okay. Okay. Because actually, you know, in the UAE, it's one female. Now
Yeah,
in Egypt last week, they had a new one, which is actually 2 females in every board. And somebody from Bahrain now was making a comment saying he's asking for 50-50. So that's why I was asking whether you have even one. So let's start one step at a time. Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Alia, for your excellent presentation. We are getting some comments and questions, but I'd like to give the chance to each one. And then Samia, maybe you'll be reading some of the questions for us. Now I'd like to move on to Ms. Ibtihal Al-Shamali. Ms. Ibtihal is one of the stars of corporate governance in the GCC countries, and she's leading that front in Bahrain, in Kuwait, and she's doing an excellent job. So Ibtihal, can you please update us on latest regulations of corporate governance in Kuwait? Please, go ahead.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to extend my gratitude to Hawkama for holding this important webinar. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Ibtihal Al-Shamali. I am currently the Director of Corporate Governance at the Capital Markets Authority in Kuwait, with more than 25 years experience in supervising the financial sector. As you are well aware, the sound corporate governance practices are among the first lines of defense for corporates to mitigate risk, control, and monitor the rapid changes in the financial markets, which in recent decades have led the supervisory authorities and legislators to implement these standards and create playing field to enhance the financial control framework and improve the economic situation. To mitigate all types of risk the corporate exposed to, a recipe of success evolves on the swift tracing of changes the financial markets in timely manner to help the corporate to continue its operations effectively. This is vital for improving the performance at the economic and financial levels. I would like to emphasize on the importance of implementing appropriate governance practices as of the most essential safety and sound factors in the times of unrest. Crisis could reveal weakness and imbalances in the financial markets, and in the world of corporates, it would be a pressure and effective the quality of the supervisory framework. The boards of directors should respond by reconsidering their strategies and future plans in the effort of enhance the confidence of investors and other stakeholders to confirm the applicable governance practices, their applications, and to what extent they can be relied on. Now, I would like to turn your attention to one of the most important factors that should be considered in corporate governance applications during crisis. It is the need to enhance the role and the tools of disclosure and transparency, which will help and restore confidence among investors and other stakeholders, and to enhance the disclosure process on the ongoing basis, especially the development of the technical aspect and the use of modern technological means. Needless to say, the importance of maintaining a robust active investor relation in these circumstances to help maintaining the existing investors or attracting potential future investors by creating the informative channel with them and to review strategies and plans for business continuity, emergency, and disaster management. Let me elaborate more on this. It is useful to intensify some practices in corporate governance. For example, increasing the number of board meetings and the need to take immediate and exceptional decisions appropriate for business continuity and how to mitigate multiple risks such as liquidity risk and market risk. Also, financial re-engineering by reducing overall costs. In this circumstances, we have to really re-engineering it by reviewing the salary and the bonuses schemes. In addition, corporates need to strengthen their administrative structures, whether on the board of directors or on the executive levels, so that they achieve the required diversity to keep up with the new requirements arising from the crisis. To name one, the pandemic forced corporate to work remotely, maintaining social distancing, and adopting the remote voting system in General Assembly meetings, which has become now it's a must and a need to corporates at this time. Now, let's move on to CMA Kuwait initiatives during the pandemic. CMA Kuwait extended its efforts and respond to the challenges during the pandemic through means of strengthened governance practices by conducting and attending specialized workshops, ongoing events, and meetings held, all of them are remotely. From the supervisory level, CMA Kuwait requiring close follow-up and interaction with corporate subject to governance requirements in order to overcome obstacles, identify insufficiencies, and propose solutions to tackle them, and enhance the role of disclosures. And based on our findings at the supervisory level, CMA Kuwait has developed a disclosure platform to monitor the impact of events resulting from the spread of the new coronavirus on the financial returns. Finally, in CMA, we are also focused on the cooperation efforts of supervisory institutions like Ministry of Commerce, Central Bank of Kuwait, other agencies and specialized companies. Among the most prominent achievement of this cooperation is the activation of holding the General Assemblies for the year remotely through electronic means and the adoption of the health authorities requirements to maintain the sound operation and operations and activities of the corporate and to be safe for everyone. Thank you, everybody, and I would for your attention. Dr. Ashraf?
Dr. Ashraf, can you please unmute the mic?
Yes. Thank you so much, Ibtihal, for your brilliant update, as usual. I just have one question before we move on to Oman, and that is the idea of sustainability and especially environmental issues. I mean, are there special clauses covering the area of sustainability and environmental practice of companies and so on in Kuwait regulations for listed companies, please?
Yes, we are recently working on this, on the ESGs and the other, sectors in CMA in the final process and cooperation with other international agencies to be released So it's in the final process, Dr. Ashraf.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Tan. Thank you. Now we move to, Oman. Oman is known in the Arab region as actually the first Arab country to get into corporate governance. They were the first country to issue a code of corporate governance in Oman, and they are leading the efforts in a very clear way. Mr. Hamid Bousaidi actually is really one of the old soldiers in this battle, if you like. He started very long ago, and we met, I think, 2004, 2005, the first time, where again we were still at the early stages of corporate governance in the region. So Mr. Hamid, he is the head of the corporate governance and stability center in Oman, and he is a think tank advising companies and government as well. So he's not really a regulator, but he's very closely related to them, and he knows what's happening inside out. Although he's very humble to say, you know, I'm not a regulator, but in fact, he knows lots of things. Mr. Hamid, please, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Ashraf. In fact, you are right. Oman Center for Governance and Sustainability, supervised by Capital Market Authority. So we are close to the capital market sector. Close to the regulator, close to the public listed companies, brokers, insurance sector, and shareholders as well. The changes actually not much since 2015 when we developed our code. The first code was issued in 2001. Code for corporate governance for public listed companies. Now, so many changes were done in 2015 and beginning of 2016. And these are, most of you maybe know, which is we have given a special role to the chairman. And that is, we noticed that the chairman plays an important role. So we gave him a special role and duties, and therefore he gets, I think, even slightly more remuneration than the rest. In addition, we have strengthened the criteria for independent director, and we have added to the code a new element, which is CSR. CSR was not even mentioned since 2002 when we introduced the first code. And else we have also enhanced the internal audit and external. We have also specified some criteria for the external auditors. And basically, we have also strengthened the committees. We have strictly separated all committees from any conflict of interest or duplication in role and responsibilities. In addition, we introduced remuneration and nomination committee. So we have now two committees: audit committee, remuneration and nomination committee. And in addition, we have said board of directors are allowed to form a special committee for a certain time, for a certain purpose, not a permanent one. Now, the new changes which we are going to have, or we are still working on them, is to change the existing code, which was issued 2015 and 16. How is that? Beginning of 2019, a new company commercial law was introduced, and it has most of the elements in the existing code for corporate governance in that law. But we have areas where the law has not tackled or addressed. And this area now, which is like environment and social one. So therefore, we are currently working on the existing code and changing that code. Instead of calling it corporate governance. We will call it ESG, because these elements are correlated. So it will cover elements to do with environment, with social and governance. The public listed companies for years, they have not been asked to comply with environment and social. So maybe it's the right time now to make a change with regard to these elements. Number two, when we introduced company commercial law beginning of 2019, we have not addressed board of directors remuneration. We are going to address it now in terms of there was a cap actually. They get out of 5% dividend. That could be maybe millions or hundreds of thousands. But then we are going to have, we had a cap, 200,000, but currently we are studying on that cap should not be there actually. That's the request for most of board of directors, that there shouldn't be a cap set by the regulator CMA. So we are working on it. How do we really come up with a better remuneration scheme in order to attract especially independent directors and attract a good qualified board of directors? Because if you notice, there's a lot of risk is involved in their duties and responsibility, and in return they get nothing actually compared to the risk, to the high risk. Number four, the new changes in Oman, we have introduced, we at the center in collaboration with Capital Market Authority, we have introduced code for state-owned enterprises. This was last year, 2020, beginning of last year. And this code now, it's like a reference to all state-owned enterprises. Now also the government has taken an action a few months back by listing all these state-owned enterprise becoming under part of our investment authority, OIA, Oman Investment Authority, which is like this sovereign fund. So now the fund is in charge. Before it was Ministry of Finance was in charge of all state-owned enterprises. Now it's different. Now the fund, the Omani fund, investment fund, is in charge of all state-owned enterprises. So therefore, we are working with them actually how to implement the code that we've been issued last year. That code was issued in collaboration with CMA. We have actually we have done that code at the center in collaboration with some experts, and also in collaboration with OECD as well. Last changes, we have, because of the pandemic, we have, like Bahrain said, the electronic voting been allowed. The a virtual meeting was allowed. In addition, we have strictly said that virtual meetings should happen. Could happen 3 times a year, but when it comes to discussion of financial statement, it should not. They should be all present, board members. But during pandemic, we excluded that actually. These are kind of changes. We're trying to be easy and flexible with circumstances. Mainly, these are the changes is happening or gonna happen in Oman. Thank you.
Mr. Hamid, always a pleasure to hear your latest initiatives. I think one of the things that Mr. Hamid mentioned, which I think I would like to get the opinions of the other participants on, is the idea of the board members' remuneration. So Mr. Hamid's point is simply that now in all the systems in the region, you do have a cap. Usually it's between 5 and 10%. So usually the maximum that a board member can get is actually, or can be, given out to the board is 10% of the profits or 5% of the profits. So now the latest initiative in Oman is simply to remove that, so that it's up to the AGM to decide on how much they give to the board members. I'm not sure what is the opinion of other sort of participants here on this clause. Do we really have to set the maximum, or is it their money, so they decide what they want to do with their money? Ibtihal, would you like to start?
About what? Excuse me, your voice is not clear.
Yeah, it's actually about that new proposal in Oman, which is to remove the maximum that board members can get in compensation. So currently it's 10% of the profits. So what they are proposing is to remove that. So there is no maximum for how much they can get out of the profits of the company. It's a shareholder thing, so they decide. So we'd like to know whether this is something where you agree on, or you think it's maybe there is a better way of doing it.
In Kuwait, we have the commercial law, which is regulate this issue. But to be honest, we are revising this recently in CMA Kuwait, and but with the pandemic, we hold this study because it's 2 years almost now. Everything is changing. Nothing. The rapid change. It couldn't make you decide the best way to do it, so we hold it. But the thing that regulate this, the bonuses and everything, not the bonuses, but with the commercial law.
Okay. Mr. Junaid, Mohammed Junaid, do you think this is something that maybe ESCA will consider later on, or you don't think it's on the table?
Yeah. So as per the international practices and as per the studies, we saw that mainly most of the countries, they're following the percentage-wise, depends on the profits. So as per the international standards, we're following it. So we may consider it later in the future, but for the time being, we will be following a percentage of the profits. But we don't have a cap regarding the remuneration of the board of directors.
Okay. Alia?
So mainly here in Bahrain, it's the same as other our neighbors in terms of having a maximum of 10% after deducting the dividends for the shareholders and all. But personally, I believe this threshold, or having a maximum percentage, is very important just to govern and protect investors from any kind of misuse of the remuneration. But since the pandemic and all, we've seen that companies have had a lot of issues with regards to the net profit. However, the company and the board were doing so great in terms of combating the implication of COVID. So I believe this may be reconsidered. However, I believe a threshold or a maximum percentage is always needed, just to align the shareholders and the board's interest, just to govern the whole process of the board remuneration. But this is something very tricky, I'd say. It needs to be studied further. So this is, I think it's a very complicated issue, given that the board's right to have a board remuneration is very necessary. So yeah.
Thank you. Samia, you have some questions or comments from your side from the audience?
Well, I have a question for Ms. Alia. Speaking about how the pandemic has changed the world economy and made major changes, especially on the regulatory framework. So we would like to know from your view, what will be the future of corporate governance in capital markets, following, of course, the COVID crisis? And as a regulator also, what do you expect from the listed companies?
That's a very good question, actually, with regards to the future of the corporate governance following the crisis, the COVID crisis. From what we experienced during this period, the pandemic contributed in changing the overall mindset of the regulator and also the market participants. We've noticed changes in characters and in business models, in crisis control measures, and will definitely, I believe, will impact the corporate governance framework in the long run. As a specific example, and as I mentioned before, the pandemic contributed in conducting virtual meetings and electronic voting. This was not something we used in Bahrain, I think, and I think in a lot of jurisdictions, COVID has contributed on that. This will add definitely significant value to the listed companies, corporate governance framework, and to the shareholders as well. Also, the COVID pandemic has brought increased attention to the importance of identifying systematic risk and unexpected shocks. As my colleague from Oman mentioned, as a regulator, we believe it's very important for companies to provide detailed and reliable disclosures and in relation to the ESG risks, the environmental, social, and governance for shareholders to evaluate, for them to evaluate when making their decisions in terms of their investments and voting decisions. As a regulator, we continue to encourage listed companies to disclose such information for shareholders. And we hope to issue guidelines and standards soon through the rules to implement a framework for ESG disclosure, as we believe such material information contributes to a significant and very strong corporate governance. As we all know, strong corporate governance is very essential for a well-functioning capital market, as it reassures the shareholders that their rights are governed and protected, and makes the companies makes it possible for the companies to lower their cost of capital, which in return adds value to the shareholders. I hope this answers your first question. So regarding the second question, it was about the what we expect from listed companies, right?
Yes.
Yes. So obviously, and since recently we are all occupied by COVID, and besides that, we following the regulators' instructions and measures, listed companies are always required, whether during the pandemic or not, to maintain a high level of corporate governance standards and maintain close communication with shareholders. This is very important. We always emphasize the importance of having a very close communication with shareholders. We also expect proactive responses to any market and economic development, and the board shall balance the interests of the shareholders and stakeholders and ensure sustainability of the company when taking strategic decisions. I would say one important point is the company's caution. As I mentioned before, when it comes to insider trading, as a regulator, it's highly important for us to see high-level controls implemented in companies to minimize and potentially eliminate insider trading. This is what is expected from the company in general. When we talk about corporate governance, we always mention the board. Because of the important role played by the board of directors, the regulator focuses on board of directors attending to their fiduciary duties at all time when discharging their responsibility towards the other stakeholders, while being mindful of their responsibilities to ensure maximizing value and returns to the shareholders. This has appeared to be very challenging recently, I believe, especially during the pandemic, as we've noticed some shift in focus by the board from creating a resilient and healthy company, financially or otherwise, instead focusing on resolving pandemic-related emergencies. Another important point arising recently is the need to conduct regular and frequent tailored trainings for the board of directors. This reinforces and strengthens the trust in the board by the shareholders, and the shareholders feel confident when they are represented by the board in taking their day-to-day business decision making. Thank you. So I think I covered all of your questions.
I think, thank you so much, Alia. I think we can take the same question to the other panelists, which is, what do you expect as a regulator from your listed companies? I mean, what are the expectations now? Would you start with Ibtihal? Can you share with us what are your expectations from your listed companies?
Well, as Alia said, the main thing that they apply with the CMA requirements, and because the platform, what we have in CMA, not only in corporate governance, even in on-site inspection, we concentrate on the continuity for the corporates. They have like reports they apply, and the off-site and on-site supervision, they will do their work with them. This is not only corporate governance, as well as of in emergency, how they will act, as well as for us, because it's remotely working, we can't be so harsh on them. This is the main thing, but we are on continuous basis with them, trying to be with them in each and every step, you know, because it's not only the whole, it's not only the markets and the supervisory body, it's the whole economy. That's why I think from my point of view, we have to be, you know, easy with them and applying the requirements, give them whatever they need. This is them, not issuing more regulations unless it's a regulation that is gonna be in the best interest of the companies. Because in CMA Kuwait, we have not only the listed company under our umbrella, also we have the registered companies, which some of them are companies that they are licensed by CMA, but they are not listed. What does it mean, license? License that they can how can I say it? They can have a financial activity without listing in the stock exchange.
Okay, come in. Okay, Mohammed Junaid, what do you expect from listed companies in the UAE? What are your expectations?
So first of all, I agree with Alia and Ibtihal on their reply on the question. We need to work together between the regulator and the company. We do not think that just implementing the corporate governance. We should think also to let's say build let's say how do they think that the corporate governance will be implemented in their company? The environment should be the same. Whatever companies will be created by the committees will be created by the company. Also should consider about it. Let's say the technical committee. This is one of the most important. We're thinking about. I saw one of the questions they spoke about the cyber securities. So we put some guidance how to create. Let's say a technical committee, but at the same time they should think with us as a regulator how we can implement it. So we're working together. It's not just we're forcing them to implement the corporate governance. We should have like a relation between the regulator and the listed companies. So this is the most important. The culture also of the companies is the culture of the companies, and let's say the culture of the board of directors. They should think about how to implement the corporate governance in a proper way. We need also to hear from them if they found something that they do not agree with us. We may consider it if they have some studies. So it's a relation between the company and between us. So this is the most important thing that we should consider it as a regulator with the listed companies.
Well, actually, this is something that we observed in the region a lot, which is not all the regulators are communicating well with the companies, unfortunately. So companies sometimes complain that their voices cannot be heard by the regulator. And we have frequently met with boards who said these guys in the same area, whatever, they are just issuing some resolutions and codes, but they have no idea what are we facing here in our companies. So I think that point which you mentioned is extremely important. Now on the comment by Suresh on the idea of having technology and cybersecurity committees, it's already in the ESCA code that came out last year. It recommended some committees for the board. So it differentiated between mandatory committees, but then optional committees for some of the boards, and that was one of them. Was actually boards can establish this sort of a committee. So it's an optional thing for the board. However, also one of the things which we realized in some of these technical committees, if you like, is sometimes they are overlapping with the management. So you are not sure, who is managing this file exactly. So that's where I think, again, regulators have to step in. Now, one of the points which Mr. Hamid Bousaid mentioned, which I think is very important, which is the independence of boards and the SOEs as well. Now, how can the regulator make sure that board members are actually independent? I mean, how can the regulator follow up to make sure that this board member still he or she is independent on the board? How do you do that, Alia, in Bahrain, for example? How do you make sure that the board member is actually independent?
Sorry, but you were disconnected. I was disconnected. I couldn't hear you, Dr. Ashraf.
So how can the regulator make sure that the board members are independent? I mean, independency is something required in lots of boards.
Yes.
Sometimes you see a board member and how can you say as a regulator this actually he or she is independent or not?
This is a very challenging aspect of the corporate governance. The whole corporate governance standards and framework is based on objectivity, so and subjectivity as well. So if I say a board member is independent, this is the part of that is being reassessed by the board himself or herself and the company as well. We have, and I think other jurisdictions also have, we have some guidelines on the independent director that he doesn't, or he or she doesn't own around 5% of the capital. He or she doesn't have any kind of business with the company and all of that. We have this guideline, and it's part of the corporate governance rule book. But at the end, as I said, this is something that we urge companies to dig more when a board member is identified as an independent, and they have to do their due diligence when they consider a board member is independent. We do our due diligence as a regulator, but at the end of the day, this is very subjective, I'd say. And this has we have this trust between us that we trust the companies and trust the board member when they identify a board member as an independent. We have to have this, and that's what we want to work on, increase the confidence and trust between us as a regulator and the company.
You see, Mr. Ali, we trust the company. See, this is something which rarely you can hear from a regulator, by the way, that we trust the company. That's something which it's only in Bahrain you can hear this sentence, huh?
You could see a lot about that, Ali, I think.
Okay, this is perfect. I mean, the final thing I'd like to ask about is actually board evaluations. Now, what does the regulator expect from board evaluation? Mohammed Janine, in the UAE, when a company or a board have this board evaluation, what do you expect out of that? What is the value of this, in your opinion, as a regulator?
So, first of all, we have some guidance that should be followed in regards of the evaluation of the board of directors. Second of all, who will be evaluating the board should be independent from the company, not someone inside the company. This will be will result for a more professional board of directors. Even the evaluator who will be evaluating the board, he will not be evaluating not just the performance. He can even evaluate the independency, whatever has been done by the company, even the performance of the board of directors. This will rise the standards of the board of directors in our region. So this is my opinion.
Okay, Mr. Hamid Bousaid, how is it in Oman? How do you think of the board evaluations? How is it going there?
Actually, since we introduced board evaluation in 2015, we had resistance, first of all, but now it is going smoothly. It has been done by a third party, independent. In addition, we at the center, actually, we have done a couple of board evaluation for very well-known entities, such as HSBC, government entities, maybe almost around 10 government entities, some public listed companies. The code says it has to be done once every 3 years. That is, the 3 years is the term. But we also said committees, a member of committees can be evaluated yearly. And I have noticed with regard to the previous questions regarding what should listed companies do during the crisis or during this situation. I think when we talk about listed companies, we talk about mainly board of directors. So therefore, board of directors have to educate themselves. We have noticed from the evaluation that many board of directors don't know how to use IFRS 9, which is to do with expected credit loss. And therefore, in a situation like this, companies need liquidity. And it's very, very risky. It's identified high risk if your receivables are not collected in a certain time, because it will be bad debt. Therefore, they should take into consideration this criteria, I mean, IFRS 9. In addition, like Mohammed said, cybersecurity, many board of directors, through also board evaluation, when we conducted board evaluation, actually we have our own model. It's you can find out how knowledgeable they are. You can find out how independent they are. Your question to my colleague Alia. You can find out also whether there is a conflict of interest, and whether it is intentionally or not intentionally. In addition, what we found out actually, and we are now working on this new changes, that they are true independent, because all criteria of independency that we stated in our code apply to them. But in reality, they are not, because they are not adding values, they are not contribution, they are not with strong personality or extra knowledge. Therefore, what we are currently, and we hope we succeed, trying to enhance the role of board of the role of independent director. In addition, link that to the board remuneration and to the certification. We will introduce soon. When I say soon, maybe beginning of next year. We are currently negotiating with international institutes how we need to certify. Certification means they should go through intensive training programs. They should go through questions and exam. And once they pass, they will be certified. We start with independent directors. And we will increase the number of independent directors in the board. Now it's 1/3, minimum 2. We are hoping to have, instead of 2, 4. That does not make it 50%. It will make it less, maybe around 40%, but we are working on that. Therefore, from board evaluation, actually, we came up with so many observations, could help us developing the existing code. And like the most important, they are not contributing as they should regarding environment or society. And therefore the new code will change actually. It will be even the name. We will not call it Code of Corporate Governance, we'll call it ESG code. So these 3 elements are connected. But the evaluation is very important. One more thing, by the way, for you all to know, we all learn and we all improve our laws, regulations through experience, through practices. What we have noticed from third independent party who are conducting the evaluation, board evaluation for public listed companies, they are not professional enough to do the evaluation actually. So now we are currently in collaboration with CMA, we will not license any consultancy firm, whether it's an audit firm or consultancy firm, to do board evaluation unless they go through certain training and certain exam. Then they will be licensed. Because currently what we have observed, they are doing it for with very bad weak report. Cost is maybe around 2,000 Omani riyals. That's about 20,000 dirhams. They are the individual evaluator in this consultancy firm are not aware of the capital market regulation, law and the company commercial law, or the code itself, or even in general about corporate governance. Board evaluation, in fact, we from now it has been since introduced in 2015, almost 6 years. We have it helped us a lot actually to even interfere. Usually, capital market authority don't interfere with the selection of board of directors. We have done with regard to 1 or 2 companies, by the way, and they are very major, big companies in terms of capital, in terms of shareholders. That is for the protection of shareholder. See, there was a board member, 2 actually. First of all, they were there for almost 12 years. Number 2, they sit in audit committee, which is a very important committee, and they have their own interest. Because of board evaluation, we came to know this. So we asked them to step down, and they did.
But Mr. Hamad, I have a question here, because I mean, in Hawkama, for example, we do lots of board evaluations in the region. I mean, we do it in different countries, different sectors, big banks and listed companies and so on. And we see lots of things and we give reports to the boards themselves, but these are never published. You cannot publish the board evaluation report. And that's why, for example, even the ESCA doesn't know what we are doing, because I cannot tell ESCA, you know, this is the results of the board evaluation. That's confidential. I cannot give it out. So I'm not sure how it will fly that the regulator can use the results of board evaluation, which is not disclosed. I mean, companies, according to the ESCA code, the central bank, they have to do it, but they don't disclose the results. Just say that they have done it, and maybe if they'd like to disclose something, that's fine, but otherwise they don't. So how can regulators use the results of the board evaluation if it's not supposed to be disclosed?
Yes, CMA in Oman, they get the report actually, but they use it according to their own judgment. And of course, they talk to the chairman or the whole board of the company, and they feel if that is the right decision is for any member of the board to step down. I don't think there was any conflict between CMA and the companies so far, but it did not happen. It only happened in 2 companies, as far as I know. In addition, for you to know, when we conducted, they were shocked actually, when we as a center conducted this board evaluation for some companies, we were surprised actually. When we handed over the final report, chairman and board member came with their own comments and said, please change this report to our comments. I said, we cannot do that. We are independent body. We are not related to director. We are not a regulator or supervisor, but and we have noticed that the other consultant who is doing the board evaluation, they are actually changing the reports according to board comments. So we raised this issue to CMA. We said, that's why you feel the reports are very well nice driven, no issues at all. But honestly, some board members are very well educated. They are the one who introduced to us that saying, with regard to cybersecurity, IFRS 9, we have difficulty. We don't understand how management deal with this. Therefore, we needed training, and we conducted training for them with regard to that. See, the board, if you notice, all principles, pillars of governance, whether it is introduced by OECD or IFC or whoever, it lies on the hand of board of directors. It is their they are at the top of the pyramid. Like they say, fish rottens from head. So they are the head of the fish.
Yeah.
So they are the concerned entity actually. So it is not anymore in Oman. They realize it's not anymore a prestigious place or a place to get income. Not anymore. And by the way, for your info, Dr. Ashraf, recent general meetings, recent election and general meetings, beginning of this year, many board of directors rejected to be board members. Despite
that's a good news. That's a good news, actually.
Yes, despite the request.
Because that they understand now. So now they understand what is the meaning of being a board member. This is really very important. But I think one of the issues which other regulators have to consider and think about is, again, the idea of disclosure of the board evaluation. Best practices, it's not supposed to be disclosed. It's something which is internal. And that's why, for example, when we do it, we get lots of very sensitive information because people know it's only for them. So they know that they will get the report. But once you start to say, you give the report to the regulator, then you start to get lots of not true information, lots of, again, cosmetic information, because they understand this report will go to the regulator. So I think this is something which is very critical. I like the area where the UE system, the central bank here is saying, the board has to do it every year and every 3 years by independent body. Again, they don't have to disclose it to anybody. Then they are very honest, and they are. The whole idea is about improving the performance of the board. That's how we perceive it, and that's how we do it. So we work with them as advisors to understand what are the problems, and we give them solutions. Now, if this report will go out, they will never mention these problems because they will know they will be exposed to the regulators. And that's the tricky part where I think it should be a little bit, we should be a little bit careful. Sami, I hand over to you because I know the time. Do you have any comments or questions coming from people you'd like to mention?
I think, Doctor, it looks like we've covered it all. So speakers, if you have anything you want to add before we wrap it up.
I would like to say something, please.
Yeah, sure.
This kind of webinars, I think, very useful actually. If you do it, Dr. Ashraf, every quarter or more than 4 times a year, among the GCC countries, it's really good because it's 1 hour. We come to know the updates from every regulator or every institute concerned with governance. So thank you for it. And also it's a chance we see our colleagues. I see Ibtihal, Muhammad Junaid, and the rest.
Well, yes, Mr. Hamid, thank you so much. Actually, what we can do is maybe after, as you mentioned, 3 months, we can have one not on the updates, but on the ideas. So then we invite listed companies and we discuss with them what are the things that they see also are worth, regulators to think about, because we would like their voices to be heard. And this is really quite important. We have seen consultants who are doing codes in closed rooms without contacting the companies. The companies are the targets. And we have to listen to them. We have to see the challenges that they are facing. They are facing lots of challenges, actually, and they are trying their best. So I think next time we do it in 3 months, maybe September, October, we do it again on thinking of what are the updates needed, and then we listen to the companies and regulators together, if that's okay with you, of course.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank you all very much. Yeah, please go ahead, Sami.
Great, thank you everyone. We appreciate you being here, of course. Special thanks to the speakers, and please, you can contact us anytime if you want to ask anything, or if you want to keep also updated about our upcoming events, you can access our website. Thank you so much.
Our annual conference is in September. You please be with us on